Okay, so let's start my presentation. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. I really appreciate it. So because of the way Hopin works, because it's in a browser window, and because of the way PowerPoint wants to cover my entire screen, I'm not going to be able to see questions until the end. And honestly, I don't remember how much time I have. So let's see how this goes. So I'm Tanya Janka. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for finding me in the adventure of Hopkin and Day of Security. I really appreciate Day of Security approving my talk. Yes, when I got the news, I was like, yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about DevSecOps and more than just pipelines, because basically, from what I've seen, especially talking to clients, generally a lot of people think DevOps is only about shoving as many things as you can into a pipeline or a CI/CD software. And this is software that will automatically test and release your code. And there's actually way more security things we can do. And if we shove every single security tool into a pipeline, we're not going to have very many dev and ops friends anymore, because we're going to slow it down. We're going to break the build with false positives, etc. So I'm going to talk about all the cool stuff you can do for security in a DevOps environment. And so like totally going with their processes in an awesome way, but without putting stuff in the pipeline and bogging it down. I'm not saying you shouldn't put anything in there. I'm saying there's so much more you can do than just that. Let's go. So DevOps is not just pipelines, just like I said. We're going to talk about what DevSecOps is and how I believe it's application security as well as operations security plus DevOps. And then you get DevSecOps. I want to talk about like the goals you can have for the security program for your software and how we can make those work with DevOps and how we can do them, a lot of them, without interrupting the pipeline. So again, I'm not saying don't put anything in the pipeline. I'm saying don't put everything in the pipeline. And here's basically, I'm going to present, I think, 12 or 13 ideas of things you can do outside of the pipeline so that you can still create secure software. So who's this Tanya person? So this is the slide that every speaker does to show you we're qualified to give our own talk. So my company, We Hack Purple, has sponsored this event. We're so proud to sponsor such an awesome event that like agrees with our values. I'm known as She Hacks Purple. Yes, some of my hair is purple. I wrote a book. It's called Alice and Bob Learn AppSec. It's right here. I'm biased, but I think it's great. I helped found, I've worked in tech a long time. I helped found a nonprofit. I helped start some OWASP chapter and project. I'm like a giant nerd on the internet. I like stream and blog and make articles. I have a podcast. I do all the stuff. And I hope you're like, yeah, she's all right. I'll keep watching. Okay, so what is DevOps? So I'm going to start with what is DevOps. And then I'm going to go into what DevSecOps is. And then we're going to go through just idea after idea after idea of things that you can do. Then I'll give you a couple free resources. And then I will bid you adieu to enjoy the rest of this awesome day. Okay, so let's start with CI/CD, which stands for continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. So let's talk about what that is, because I find clarifying that makes everything better. So continuous integration means putting all the little parts that everyone's working on together and making sure everything still actually works. That's integration. And then doing it continuously is the magic of what a pipeline does, is that it automates you putting all the stuff together all the time. And you add tests in to make sure the stuff actually still works once you put it together. Integration testing manually is hard. And so the invention of this is a beautiful, amazing thing. Then continuous delivery. So CI/CD pipelines not only integrate everything, it can deploy stuff to dev, to QA, to whatever server or a platform as a service or container that you desire into your environment. Yes, that means you can test that it deploys properly. And then after it's deployed, you can test. And that's cool. So continuous delivery is the idea of automating these steps. Yes. Continuous deployment is not always a part of DevOps. It's more advanced. And what it means is that you have so many tests and you are so certain of all your automation that you just let it deploy out into production without any manual intervention. If it passes everything, it just goes out onto the internet or into your network or whatever it is that you do with it. This is not something everyone does, but I want you to know it's an option. So why do we use pipelines? Why do we use CI/CD? So CI/CD is the DevOps pipeline. That's what people are talking about. Well, when we do trunk-based development, so that means everyone writes their little part and then integrates it. They write little parts, they integrate it. And they just keep going back to the trunk of a tree, right? They have these little branches off the tree and then they push their code into the middle all the time. If you're changing little tiny things, that means you have little tiny risks. What we used to do with Waterfall is we would have a whole crap ton of changes or a totally new app. And then we would go down to deploy it, and then it would often just crash and break. And it was a lot of risk. Automation. So automation is awesome because you do less boring stuff. But it also means that you can go faster, and it means that you can make a perfect copy of your process every time. So it's not like Bill was tired and he went home early, and so he didn't check that extra thing. It's automation. Computers don't get tired. And then the other thing is integration. So previously, so many places I'd worked as a dev, they have like all these little parts and they're all waiting for their special time, and then they put them together and then errors. And so by doing integration all the time, you have less integration errors. And just trust me when I say they're so painful. If you've never been a dev and you've never had to integrate your part with someone else's part, it's like, I thought you said that would be a float. No, I told you it would be an int. No, but in the documentation, well, in my copy of the documentation, and then you put your stuff together and it's like, and it doesn't work. So that's CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous delivery, or DevOps pipelines. So what is application security, or AppSec for short? It's every and anything that you do to ensure that your software is secure. So I said that because no one else said it, but it can be running a formal security program for your apps. It can be a dev listening to a podcast and hearing about, oh, this version of Node.js has this big security bug in it, and we should upgrade off that version because it sounded really scary. All of those things are you fighting the good fight. So what is DevSecOps? So my friend Imran said this. He's an awesome dude. So it's application security that has been adjusted for a DevOps environment. And basically, we still want the same things. We still want the apps being released to be hardened and tough and reliable and rugged. But we don't want to break all the nice things that the DevOps teams are doing. So if they have processes, we need to follow them. So then how do you do DevOps, right? I've had so many people tell me, oh, we do Agile because we have Scrum meetings. I'm like, yeah, but you're not doing any of the rest of Agile. Or we're using DevOps because one of our 10 teams that does dev has a pipeline. And it doesn't deploy to prod or anything, but we have a pipeline, so we are DevOps. No. So to do all of DevOps, and you don't have to do all of it to benefit from it, but to do all of it, you need to follow the 3 ways. And this is according to the Phoenix Project, the DevOps Handbook, etc. So you need to emphasize the speed of the entire system. And so that is definitely where a pipeline can come in, but there's lots of other things you can do to make sure the whole thing is fast, not just your part, or that everyone's waiting on your part. The other thing is getting fast, accurate feedback to the right person as soon as you can. And so this is where pipelines can also come in, but there's lots of other ways that you can get fast, accurate feedback to people. And the last one is continuous learning, also known sometimes as improving your daily work. So experiments, risk-taking, like calculated risk-taking, efforts to improve yourself, improve your systems, improve your processes, improve your team. And so these are the 3 ways of DevOps. So we're going to talk about how you can do awesome security work within these 3 ways without putting 25 tools in a pipeline. I consulted somewhere and I came in and did dev security training, which is what I do. And they were telling me, well, the AppSec lead was telling me when he came in, there were 3 hours of security tests every time the pipeline ran. And the devs hated the security team. And he actually spent 1.5 years taking almost all those tests out, automating them, and then having in the pipeline a 30-second to 60-second check that just checks his security API that says, yeah, we ran this test in the last hour. We ran all of them and it passed or it failed. It passes security or it fails security. And then all the devs basically love him now. But yeah, they had something like 11 security tools in the pipeline. It took forever. It doesn't matter how much you improve the speed. And so the devs are like, I can't get my work done if every time I want to check something, I have to wait 3 hours. So yeah, sometimes DevOps is about compromise, but still getting your job done. Okay, so what about pipelines? So the ways of DevOps, number 1 and 2, pipelines are involved with making sure that happened, but it's not the only thing. And if you're doing number 3, continuous learning, you're probably going to learn about pipelines so that you can do better and better. But DevOps is not just using pipeline software. So like I said before, if you put every single thing into a pipeline, every single security check you ever wanted to do and then some, the devs won't want to be friends with you anymore. And if the devs aren't talking to you, if the devs are your enemy, you're not going to do well at AppSec. You're just not. They need to trust you. They need to know when they can come to you, and they need to not basically hate you if you want to get your job done. So let's talk about you doing an awesome job and lots of extra options. So let's say you just put 2 super important checks into the pipeline. What are you going to do with the rest of your checks? So let's talk about it. Yeah. I'm pretty advanced with my PowerPoint foo. Okay, so let's talk about goals. So when I run AppSec programs, the thing that I like to do is write goals, like set goals for my security program for the software where I'm working, and then smash those goals. I love smashing goals. Anyway, so I'm going to go through a bunch of really common goals for AppSec programs. And they're a little bit vague on purpose because you would tune them up for your organization, but I wanted to make them apply to anywhere. Oh, just a second. I made it so that my team could message me a bit, and that doesn't seem fine. Okay, perfect. Sorry to interrupt a sec. I was just like, oh, maybe something's happening and I need to know, but everything's fine. Okay, good. It's hard when you have like no visibility into your audience, because usually I'm like the moderator from the conference can be like, hey, your mic's broken. But like, I can't hear. I'm just speaking to a blank screen and like hoping you haven't all hung up on me. Okay, so let's look at common goals that you would have for your application security program, and then how we can do lots of cool security things that don't have to be in a pipeline. Yes. Okay. Oh yeah. I was trying to do like silly things with my slides. Anyway, okay. So I talk about taking an inventory of all your web assets ad nauseum because you can't protect things if you don't know you have them, right? And so a lot of AppSec programs that I talk to, they're like, oh yeah, we have like 20 or 30 apps. And I'm like, it's really important that each app receives security attention. So let's go figure out how many apps you actually have and all your APIs. And then let's make sure each one of them gets attention, because quite often in the past, I will respond to an incident and guess what the incident is for? An app we didn't know about. And guess how much security testing or attention it's gotten? And then guess what that means? Usually malicious actors get in or bad things happen. And so I want to shepherd all the apps into my attention sphere so that then I can like do security testing or like put band-aids on things or whatever it is I need to do to make sure that we have a respectable security posture. And then I go for gold to try to like increase it so it's way better. But first of all, like, let's put out all the fires, and you have to do inventory for that. So when you're doing inventory, you can do internet domain scraping, which does not require a pipeline. So these are all things you can do that have nothing to do with the pipeline so that you can do this inventory activity. But a pipeline does help you, because if it's in a pipeline, that means that you can put in your inventory. So you can install network agents on servers to track all your web assets. There's this thing called Rumble, I think, from, oh, I can't remember what group it is, but it's supposed to like help track your web assets. That's cool. There's BitDiscovery that can do public domain scraping. There's like a whole bunch of cool tools out there. Oh, I thought this was on the screen. So I'm a big fan of Nmap. You can Nmap all the things that you can reach within your network. And if there is port 443 or port 80 open, better believe it, there's a web app on there. You can go into your cloud and look at all your platforms as a service and your infrastructure as a service dashboards. And again, if port 443 or 80 is open, first of all, close 80 and redirect to 443, HTTPS only. Just like I'll just take off my lecture hat for a minute. You can scrape your code repo for, like, everything that's in there is an app, right? It might not be live, but it's an app, so go check it out. But basically, if you don't know about these things, then it's not even going to be in the pipeline likely. And that means you can't give it security attention if you're not aware about it. So again, all these things you can do without the help of a pipeline. So usually when I talk to companies, they ask me like, oh, should we get a dynamic application security testing tool, or should we do static code analysis, or what should we do? And I usually say, I want us to find bugs from these three perspectives: written code, running code, and then third-party code. So code you did not write, but that's part of your app, and that you have to accept the risk for anyway because it's part of your app. So this would be libraries, frameworks, components, etc. So written code, but that your team did not write. So back in the old days, what we would do is manual code review. We would run a static application security testing tool outside of a pipeline. SAST is actually still pretty new. We would run a DAST manually. Usually you would need to sign permissions. I remember one place I worked, I kid you not, there was a 21-step approval process and a 3-week waiting period every time I ran one scan. That is not a way to get your app secure. Manual review of third-party components. So that's painful. And then bringing a pen tester in at the end. This was what I used to see years ago. And that is an old, slow way of doing things. You can do it that way. It's going to be really expensive. So next, NewGuard. So these are more modern ways. I'm seeing usually a mix of the old and new together at a lot of places. So testing in real time as the applications are being used from the inside out. So this is IAST, Interactive Application Security Testing. So it's a binary that goes inside your app and checks running code and written code, whether you wrote the code or not. A+, that's pretty cool. You can scan your third-party components in a pipeline if you want to, but you can also scan them on check-in, and you can scan your repo weekly or daily. And so you can actually scan all sorts of things all the time for third-party code, and you don't need to use a pipeline. You can run DAST or SAST on automated scheduled scans outside a pipeline and still get really good results. You can even automate the findings to go into tickets in like Jira or ServiceNow or whatever you use to track your bugs. I suggest validating first personally, but YOLO. Next. Okay, so knowledge. So a thing that I want my teams to have is the knowledge to fix the common bugs that we've found. So if every time I give a bug report to a dev team, they literally don't understand any of the things, that's not going to work. Like if I'm showing them, okay, so we have injection vulnerabilities, and they have no idea what injection is, they have no idea what input validation is, this means that we need to do some training. And so this is the third way of DevOps, continuous learning. And so a thing I really like doing, if I can, is using a vulnerability management tool or Excel, and then like smash all my results in there and see where we suck. So like we're having lots of cross-site scripting, we're having lots of injection, and no one's using security headers. Okay, I'm going to train everyone on that. We're going to have deep dives on that. I can strategize with my security teachings if I have this data. Another thing you can do is create a security champions program, and you can train the crap out of those security champions and then have them proliferate that knowledge to all your other teams. This is a way where you can scale your efforts and potentially spend a lot less money. And no pipeline is required to do any of these things, right? So again, you're working within DevOps processes, helping devs, supporting ops, and not interrupting their pipeline. So I'm a big fan of developer education. So I know we just talked about knowledge, but what about regular training to repeat these messages to make, because you can't, I worked somewhere once and it was 2015 and they're like, yeah, we trained those devs on secure coding. I don't know why they're still so crappy. I'm like, when did you train them? 2011. Oh, so 4 years ago you gave them training. You haven't had turnover, and also you think they have perfect memories to remember a half day of training perfectly 4 years later. Wow, you must think your devs are amazing and immortal. Okay, so you can create education and reference materials about security. You could start an advocacy program, a security champions program, lunch and learns. You can have time reserved in their schedule each week so that they learn. But none of these things require a pipeline, but they're really important and will definitely result in increased security posture of all of your apps. Another thing you can do is give devs security tools so they can use them and do lots of tests themselves before they even put the code in the pipeline. That is pushing all the way left. So you can give them a dynamic or static application security testing tool so they can test it themselves so they know they're going to pass your tests. You can help them take their unit tests they already have and copy them and add payloads in order to turn them into negative unit tests or abuse cases. And again, all the unit tests have to run and pass before the pipeline. You can help them set up code repo scanning so that they're getting regular results on that. You can set up IDE tools and hooks, so things that are right into their pipeline. You can give them access to a software composition analysis tool. Like, you can do all of these things and they can do all of it themselves. When I was a dev, I was like, get out of my way. I want to do it. I want to pass your stupid test. I would definitely have run every single thing so that when it went through security, I'd be like, yeah, see, I don't even need you. I was a little arrogant. We'll just leave that. Okay, so a secure system development lifecycle. So this means putting one or more security activities into every phase of the system development lifecycle. So this could be having a set of standardized security requirements for every new software project. This could be having a secure coding guideline, teaching everyone the guideline, having reference materials, and even code samples from the guideline. This could be reviewing and respecting secure design principles when you're doing the design phase. It could be threat modeling during the design phase. It could be pen testing during the testing phase. There's so many things you can do, and only one of them is adding tools to the pipeline, right? Like as an action. So this is a pretty good deal. Oh, there's more. So you could assign an AppSec resource to the project team to have them follow them through the lifecycle process as a partnership model. You could have a pen tester come in to test your high profile apps outside the pipeline. You could do chaos engineering and red teaming. You could do monitoring. I just go on and on and on. There's just like so many things you can do. I'm a big fan of a secure system development lifecycle. So tools that can go outside the pipeline. So a big program goal for every AppSec program is to have good tools that are effective, that give you accurate results, that actually help your devs. There's no point in scanning and scanning and scanning, and then no one understands the results and no one fixes things. You want to implement useful and effective tooling. So you want accurate results, good coverage, valuable feedback. And if they can teach you how to fix the things it finds, that's A+ in my books. So don't put every tool in the pipeline. Please, I'm asking you for every dev on this planet. If you have lots of false positives, that's not going to make them happy. If you make the pipeline take 10 times longer than it previously did, they might turn you off. Continuous scanning outside a pipeline can be more accurate. Like you can do DNS-based, agent-based, code repo. There's like lots of options of ways that you can automatically scan over and over again your systems. You can also create another pipeline that's your own that doesn't release, that's not the one that belongs to dev and ops. And then you can automate lots of things in there. And again, just like let dev and ops do their magic and not get in their way. Incident response does not require a pipeline. And I actually have like a bunch of slides about this because incident response is sort of one of my favorite topics. But I'm looking at the time and realizing we're like pretty close. So, oh, whatever, let's do it. So you want to create an incident response process. You want to give access to the incident response team to your inventory so they can know what they're protecting. Give them access to your repo, to tools, perform postmortems that are blameless. You want to give training once a year. But basically, the idea is doing really good incident response does not require a pipeline at all. The last idea I'm going to present about awesome, cool things you can do outside a pipeline is getting metrics. Continuously improving your program based on metrics. This is the third way. Continuous learning, improvement of your daily work, right? So get feedback from any of your stakeholders. This can be devs, this can be ops, this can be your clients, this can be management, this can be the project manager, this can be the C-suite. Listen. Listen, take notes, and take action. Trust me. So things you can do. Every 3 months, review all of the results from your tools, your postmortem findings, and information from stakeholders, and adjust. You might find your program gets better and better and better. I've done this in the past, and oh yeah, I want to stop finding the same types of bugs. I want to obliterate types of bugs and find new types of bugs. I want to have every dev be like, injection, are you kidding? I'm allergic to that. I want you to find better ways to reach your goals. So you can create proof of concepts of new tools or new approaches on just one project instead of all of them, and then see the results before you migrate and spread it to everyone. You can visit other AppSec shops. When I worked at the Canadian government, at one point, a whole bunch of them, scientists, went to Britain to visit the other scientists and share data between the two countries. And then we came back with all these awesome ideas from the Brits. And so you can do this with other AppSec teams. You can follow industry leaders and learn from them. People like me, people like Imran, people like every single person speaking at this conference. You can attend conferences and sit in on talks like this one. You can form relationships with other areas of IT in efforts to work better together. Please don't feel like talking to a project manager is a waste of your time. That person has a completely different viewpoint from you. They have completely different relationships and access to everyone else in IT. The people in QA, I'm like, oh, you're going to be my new bestie because they do tests. And then I'm like, great, I like tests. And then you can find out cool things their team is doing and perhaps integrate your ideas. AppSec's a social type of job if you want to do a great job of it. You don't have to be a social butterfly, ultra extrovert like me, but talking to other people and forming relationships is definitely worth every minute of your time. Okay, so summary. You want to take your AppSec program goals and add and adjust them for DevOps. AppSec is not just one tool or tactic. Everything should not go into a pipeline because DevOps is more than just pipelines. Yes. So let's get some resources. So first of all, awesome books. So this is a talk about DevOps. So obviously the DevOps Handbook, the Phoenix Project, Accelerate, and the Unicorn Project. I love these books so much. I have physical copies of them and audiobook copies. I love them so much, but also my book. I wrote a book, and it is not specifically about DevOps, although we do cover it in one chapter. It's about all of application security. And I'm biased, but I think it's pretty darn great. If you're a woman and if you're at Day of Security, this probably describes you as someone that might want to check out WOSEC, Women of Security. So we are an international nonprofit of basically lots of lady and ladylike folk who want to meet and make friends with other women that work in security. We don't have some grand plan. We just want to make a lot more friends. I have a podcast about what different careers and information are in security are like, and it's called the We Hack Purple podcast. Every Monday, I run Cyber Mentoring Monday on Twitter. If you want to give back to our industry and teach someone new the ropes, please respond to someone's request. If you are looking to get into security or switch fields within security or just level up, finding a professional mentor is a great way to do this, and also a great way to just make a really amazing friend. So check out this hashtag on Twitter every Monday. Resources, me. There's Alice and Bob Learn. So once a month for the next 11 months, I am doing a stream where I teach part of the book basically with friends. I have a YouTube channel. I have a website that just asks you politely to buy my book. I have a Twitter account. Basically, I just tweet a lot. I'm a giant nerd. Thank you so much for coming to my talk today. I'm Tanya Jenka, and I would love to take questions. Oh, thanks, Angela. Oh, thank you, Rhea. Oh, thank you, Kate. Oh, hi, Eva. Thank you. Hi. So I'm not sure when I'm going to be kicked out of here. So I want you to all know when I'm kicked out of here, I'm going to go to the We Hack Purple booth and just kind of hang out. So if you want to come and say hi, like at any point in the day, just like come on over and I'll be there. Oh, thank you, Jimmy. I believe that Day of Security is recording these and then they're going to release them. So if you want to watch it again, also, if you want slides, just, send a message to me and I can send you the slides, or I'll share them with Day of Security. I love sharing. Does anyone have any questions before I get the boot? Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you coming to my presentation. Oh yeah, Patricia, GitHub offers checks for libraries. It's called Dependabot. So you have to turn on dependency graph in your settings and then turn on Dependabot, and it will show you some security things. Yeah, it's a sweet deal. And someone else was mentioning some people do linting versus SAST. So hi, Ozzy, thanks for coming. So linting is basically like really, really strict grammar checking for your code. So for instance, some languages, you don't have to declare what type of variable it is. You can just let it figure it out on its own by the way you use it. Linting will say, there's no poetic license here. You will define that variable, young lady. Another thing linting will do is basically it just makes sure you follow the letter of the law in regards to your programming framework, and that you're not using bad coding styles, bad coding decisions. If something has been deprecated, it's like, that's not acceptable. It's like the grammar police. And so do I think linting's good? Yes. Do I think it's as good as static application security testing? No. I would ask a dev to lint, and then I would want to run a static application security testing tool, then have a security professional look over the results and pass those results once they're validated and we know they're a real thing, pass those to the devs and then say, I'm here if you need help fixing it. That's the way I would like to do it. I know that some people, there's one AppSec person and 5,000 devs, and that doesn't scale very well. But every place I've worked that just runs a SAST and just sends the unvalidated results to the devs makes enemies. I hope that is helpful. So someone says we're proof of concepting a tool named SEMGREP, which is a combination of linting and SAS. Yeah, and in SEMGREP, you can write your own kinds of things to look for. I don't know if any of you watch the OWASP DevSlop show. I'm just going to type that out. So they have a channel on YouTube, and I used to be part of that open source project until quite recently, and they're all my friends. But anyway, they had Clint Gibler on, who's also my friend, and he actually gave this in-depth demo of like exactly how to strategize using SEMGREP as a workshop, and it's free and it was really cool. So in the absence of budget for SAS, can code quality tools like SonarQube fill in the gap? So I would definitely use SonarQube. If I don't have money for a SAS tool, absolutely. It will definitely help. It definitely improves stuff. Another thing you can do is like use multiple different things, if that makes sense. So for instance, using linting, using Sonar Cloud or SonarQube, depending. Using, like, let's say you use Ruby on Rails, there's Brakeman and it's free. So there's lots of like different little open source things you can use. You can also just like attack it from lots of other angles. So you could do a secure code review on pull requests. So just changes, and you could just review for the top 3. I call them the top 3. So input validation, output encoding, and that you're using parameterized queries every time. If you teach the people that review pull requests to always ensure those things are done correctly, like you've just obliterated a very, very, very large percentage of every single code error. Yeah. Oh, Jasmine, what factors would determine which would be the best course of action when setting up an AppSec program? Start scanning with any tool possible and focus on getting data in the findings, or scan a little and resolve as you go with one team and then replicate with other teams and expand scanning tool usage? Yeah. And then Patricia's answer is, I would say it depends on how much people power you have to review the results. Yeah, I'm agreeing with Patricia. So I would say if you can set up, like spend half your time setting up tools so that you at least are getting one type of security testing on every app, and then the other half reviewing results with teams. So if you can go over the test results one time with one team, then move on to the next team and tell the first team, if you need help, call me, and kind of grow from there. And spending half your time proliferating the tools to everywhere. Then once you have everything scanning, take those results and look for patterns, because there's probably patterns. Every place I've ever worked with, when we do that, when we look at all the data, like let's say you just run a DAS scan on every one of your apps. I take the top 3, and 2 of the top 3 are always the same. It's always cross-site scripting, and no one's using security headers. And a lot of people say, oh, security headers are really low priority, but security headers are actually a ridiculously quick win and can stop a lot, like basically minimize or mitigate, or at least like slow down any type of attack that happens. And it's like 1 or 2 lines of code. It's really, really, really fast fix. And so I usually find whatever their top 3 are and just like smash on those in every meeting and talk to everyone. And so then in 6 months from then, I'm like, it's weird. You sent me something and there was no security headers. I don't understand. Or like, oh yeah. So Ozzy's saying, if you want to start in non-blocking mode, so the first time you put something in a pipeline, I always put it just on alerting. So they see that they've failed a test, but they can still release their code. Because if you just add security tests to every pipeline, almost no one will be able to go to prod for a while. And then, you know, you'll end up with people coming over with rotten tomatoes to your cubicle, and that's not good. Patricia, well, we have a booth, so you all can follow me to the We Hack Purple booth, and like I'm just gonna hang out there until there's no one left and it's boring. Yeah, that's why we got a booth. So I could just hang out with people. Oh, it's my pleasure, Jasmine. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions? I love all the comments here, because a lot of AppSec depends on, oh, thank you for coming, Suki. Aw. How do you handle instant response in an automated environment? Trying to find a happy medium for pipelines Overriding incident response actions. Oh, so if there's an incident with one of my apps, I don't usually fix things in prod. I usually fix things in dev and test the fix, because C-level executives get real nervous during security incidents, and for good reason, right? I have seen teams push out stuff really fast and then break everything, and it's worse than what the incident was. And for obvious reasons, no one wants to get fired. So I always try really hard to test it in dev first. And if you have a pipeline, I push the change through the pipeline, because it does all the tests that it should have, and then it goes through. If it's an absolute emergency, like an active attack's happening right now, and you want to actually take it down out of prod, yeah, I would turn prod off. I worked at one place once, and in the middle of the night, we turned it off. All the devs had gone home. We didn't have contact information. We knew we couldn't issue a patch in that time. And so we just turned it off, because like the attacks just kept happening and we're just having our butts handed to us. And so we just like hit the switch and turned off the server, which felt very weird. And then we were in the news, and that was awkward. And some of my friends are like, was that you? And I'm like, obviously I'm not, I can't comment on news articles. Yeah. But yeah, so I usually try really hard not to change things in prod, and only change them in dev and push it through all the regular testing I would. If you do manual testing, this is much more complex. I worked at another place, which I will never name because it's so bad, and they had a 16-month release cycle. And so we had a really, really, really critical, terrifying me type of thing happening. And the dev team told me an absolutely emergency, the sky is falling release would take 4 months. And I just wanted to put my head in my hands and cry. And I was like, remember 6 months ago when I begged you to put a WAF up? And I said, we don't even have to turn on any rules. Just let me install WAFs on every web server so that if something really bad happens, I can install a virtual patch. Please. So I ended up working with the devs, and we actually released a manual workaround and installed it on the server manually, like in the middle of the night, and it sucked. And then we were protected. And then we did the 4 months emergency release with a better fix. And then the next 16 months, I left by then, but they worked on releasing like a real release to like fix the actual thing. But I was like, can I have a WAF now? And they're like, no, you're busy for the next 16 months. And I was like, I can't work here. I can't work here if you won't let me prevent the things. Oh yeah. How about everyone? Oh, how would you handle installing something like Zap into the pipelines when every single service in the company has their own separate pipeline? So first of all, if you're going to use a DAST tool, like a dynamic application security testing tool in a pipeline, yeah, we're going to teach a DevSecOps course this year. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. We have a half-day live training that you can hire us for, but we're making like a full on-demand with labs, everything. Yeah, we're pretty excited. Okay, so for Zap, first of all, I would run it in headless mode, never run the GUI. Okay, so I have a demo with my friend Nancy Gariche from the OWASP DevSlop show. You can see a video of us doing it where we have the GUI, and you can hear us saying, never run a GUI for a pipeline. Always use the command line. So headless means no GUI. So just code. I would run either just the passive scan. So it checks your security headers, your cookies, your settings, your URL parameters, your ciphers, your SSL, TLS, just that. And it's highly accurate and extremely quick. Or if I'm going to run a DAST tool, I'm going to work closely with the QA team. If the QA team specifically makes automated tests with Selenium or something else that creates a HAR file, so that's HAR file. So that's the recording of the QA tests. And I would take that, put that into the DAST tool. So I know Neuralegion, Acunetics, I think Burp does, I'm not sure if Burp does it, but like a whole bunch of the DAS tools will accept a HAR file and you put that in, and then the DAS knows exactly what to do and nothing else. And so then it runs exponentially faster. And then you've just re-verified the security of everything that the QA team feels is important. You are going to miss some stuff, but you should do a full, total, intense fuzzing session outside a pipeline because it's going to be really slow. So again, the HAR files only work if you have a QA team that is already maintaining them and who you are besties with, so they update you when there's a new one. Making the HAR files yourself will take forever. And so in which case, just do headless and passive scan. I hope that answers this. Yeah, HAR files are awesome. So bias alert, I'm on the board at Neuralegion. And yeah, we did like this workshop together that's free on their YouTube channel. And like we installed a HAR file and then it's like test takes 8 minutes instead of 40 minutes. It's pretty sweet. But it's not as complete as if you let the entire thing run. But if you let Zap run on full blast in your pipeline, there's going to be so many false positives and it's going to take like 45 minutes instead of 5 minutes. Yeah. So that was a great question. Okay, I'm going to go to the booth now, and I hope some of you come join me and like just hang out. I'm so excited to see all of you. Thank you again so much for coming to my talk. I really appreciate it. There were a lot of good choices in this time session. I'll see you at the We Hack Purple booth.